This is the sound of your ride home with Dad after he caught you vaping. Awkward, isn't it? Most vapes contain seriously addictive levels of nicotine and disappointment. Know the real cost of vapes. Brought to you by the FDA.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. There's nothing sweeter than baking cookies during the holidays. With Prime, I get all my ingredients delivered right to my door, fast and free, no last-minute store trips needed. And of course, I blast my favorite holiday playlist on Amazon Music. It's the ultimate soundtrack for creating unforgettable memories. From streaming to shopping, it's on Prime. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to get more out of whatever you're into.
Support for this podcast comes from CDTA, The Eagle, a Times Union podcast driven by CDTA. Jessica Marshall here with another episode of The Eagle, a Times Union podcast. Well, you know it's been an interesting week when one of the top news stories is the discovery of a rare mastodon skeleton in an Orange County backyard. The kid in me who loves dinosaurs and prehistoric creatures is pretty fascinated by this. It's the first mastodon fossils found in New York in more than a decade. The state education department says that Orange County was actually a hot spot for mastodons something like 13,000 years ago. It's so cool, but that's not the focus of today's episode. This week, we're talking about drones. Specifically, a spate of drone sightings recorded across the Northeast in the last month. There were so many that lawmakers and public officials started demanding answers from the federal government. What were these mysterious drones, and did they pose a threat? Hudson Valley reporter Maria Silva has been covering reports of sightings across the Hudson Valley, and she joins me now to discuss the latest. What is the deal with these drones? Like, people started seeing mysterious drones in the skies over the Northeast and then, started in New Jersey and then, inched its way up the Hudson Valley. Like, what is your kind of take on the general situation?
Yeah, it's been very mysterious. I guess a story that's been surrounded by a lot of mystery, a lot of unanswered questions, and also a lot of speculation.
Well, what is that speculation, though? Like, are people thinking like, oh my gosh, it's enemy, surveillance, or it's aliens, or like?
Yeah, there are a lot of different theories about these unknown aircrafts. We've seen New Jersey Representative Jeff Van Drew claiming that these drones came from an Iranian mothership, claims that the Department of Defense has now denied and shut down. I guess there's this fascination with the unknown and, seeing lights in the sky that we don't really know what they are, where they come from, and why they're there. This all started in mid-November. People started reporting what appeared to be drone sightings in the sky, mostly in New Jersey, but then as weeks went on, we started seeing them in the lower Hudson Valley and even all the way up to Saratoga and Albany counties. It's natural. People started, speculating, wondering what they were, and really going to the authorities for answers. But yeah, people started, talking about the possibility that these could be, foreign entities, even aliens. Like, I think that's like the wildest, one of the wildest theories. But mostly people just said that, or suspected that those were, military aircrafts.
So something tied to the government, that's relatively normal in the course of whatever they do.
Yeah. The military is not, they already put out a statement saying that aircrafts flying above military bases and restricted airspaces is not a new thing. So they're always, surveilling and, watching for those.
Yeah, I mean, I think the heightened state of the current kind of geopolitical situation in the world is pretty tense for a variety of different reasons. So, I guess it would make sense that people would get scared if they saw things in the sky that they couldn't quite, pin down as an airplane or something else, or the idea that it is identifiable as a drone, but no one knows whose drone it is. Like, I could see why that would inspire some fear, right?
Yeah, yeah, and even we saw Orange County Executive Steve Newhouse almost tying this back to, the security at the southern border and just in general the United States defense efforts and national security. But yeah, there's just been a lot of controversy, a lot of speculation, as it's natural. It's, over the course of history, we've been fascinated by what we don't know.
There's a video on, timesunion.com and on our social channels of someone recording like what they thought were drones over our area, our coverage area, our region. But since this is an audio thing, can you describe what it looked like, what people were seeing?
Yeah, generally the videos and that people have been sharing mostly on social media showed what appeared to be drones or different lights in the sky that appeared to be traveling slowly. Some of them had their lights blinking. Some of them even had their lights turned off. But it looked like they were flying really slowly, pretty low to the ground. Like for example, like the Orange County executive, Steve Newhouse, actually was talking about him saying one or several of these drones that he described as being the size of a small car.
Of course, people have drones, and in New York State, you need a drone license, but you can still operate a drone. So it's not unheard of for somebody to fly a drone, in a space where they're allowed to do so. In the end, right, there were so many people who were concerned about it that Governor Kathy Hochul in New York called for, let's look into this. What is this? And we finally got something of an answer from the government, right?
Yeah, yeah. Officials were saying there are more than 1 million drones that are lawfully registered with the Federal Aviation Administration in the US. So it's not new that people are flying these. So several agencies from the federal government, including the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, the Federal Aviation Administration, and the Department of Defense, sent out a statement basically saying that they hadn't identified anything anomalous, and they did all the activity that had been reported to them so far did not present a national security or public safety risk. Basically, they reviewed data and reports from people. They said they got more than 5,000 reports of alleged drone sightings in the last few weeks, and those generated approximately 100 leads, according to their statement. And basically, after reviewing all this data and reports, what they identified was that all of these quote unquote drone sightings were actually a combination of commercial, hobbyist, law enforcement drones, as well as fixed wing aircrafts, helicopters, and even stars that were mistakenly identified as drones, which
Like
was
twinkling stars.
yes,
Huh.
that was the most interesting part.
Basically, in the end, nothing to worry about, nothing to see here. These aren't spy balloons. These aren't aliens. These aren't anything that's a danger to society at this point, right?
Exactly. So far, what the government has identified was that these do not pose any threat to the public, and that these were actually, drones that were lawful, and or aircrafts and helicopters and stars, which are where they should be.
Yes. If the stars weren't where they should be, then we're all in big trouble.
Yes.
Okay, so even though it's nothing to worry about, Senator Charles Schumer, the senior senator from New York, is going to introduce some legislation to kind of deal with drones, right?
Yeah, so Senator Schumer, this law would aim to provide more oversight to state and local authorities to not only track drones, but allow them to more quickly respond to the sightings of drones. This comes after on last Friday, the runways at Stewart International Airport in Newburgh were shut down for about an hour due to this drone activity. And this is an airport, so the facility has restricted airspace, so nobody can fly drones there, obviously.
Yeah, so that brings up a point about how, drone usage, while in New York you have to have a license and you can only fly certain places, but there's issues with that disrupting major transportation and other critical functions in society if people are, flying drones where they shouldn't be, right?
Right. Yeah. So this is not uncommon, and we've seen that a lot of people were wondering, "Oh, can we shoot these down? Can we shoot these drones down?" But
You don't want to inspire that, no.
right, exactly, because you never know if that's a manned aircraft, right, with people on board. You don't want to have people shooting at aircrafts in the air, right? So officials were worried about people shooting at these drones or aircrafts, just for that, to avoid that risk. They're also warned, officials also warned against people pointing lasers at the suspected drones, obviously, because, the aircraft pilots, could be hit in the eyes with that and, really disrupt their, what they're doing. So yeah, there was a lot of questions as to how to go about this, and people almost wanting to take matters into their own hands. But thankfully, no threats here.
You can read more about the drones and see video of a recent drone sighting in Albany at timesunion.com. Unrelatedly, the Times-Union has a drone, and we've taken some amazing photographs with it this year. You can see those also at timesunion.com. That's it for this week. We here at the Eagle and the Times-Union wish you a very happy holiday season. Stay safe out there. We'll be back in the new year with more episodes. The Eagle is a production of the Times-Union. It's produced and edited by myself, Jessica Marshall, with help from the Times-Union digital team and the newsroom. Our music is Flyin' by Top Floor. Special thanks to Maria Silva for her contributions to this episode. Questions or comments? Email us at podcast@timesunion.com. Support for this podcast comes from CDTA, The Eagle, a Times-Union podcast driven by CDTA.
Why is healthcare so expensive? What's happening with climate change? And are elections safe? You can find answers to those questions and a lot more with Capitol Confidential from me, Dan Clark. I give you the latest news and analysis from the state capitol and beyond. Sign up now at CapitolConfidential.com. That's Capital with an O, confidential.com.